Welcome, everyone. I'm Pete Tiliakis, HR Technology and Services Research Director for NelsonHall, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion on how employee delight can be real. I'm already seeing that we have visitors from a number of locations, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon where you're calling us from. Please feel free to chime in with where you're joining us. We'd love to note that. For example, here we go. First one, William from Oklahoma. Welcome. Thank you. Let's take a moment to go ahead and get introduced to our panelists who will be joining me for today's discussion. First up, Felicia. Welcome.
Yes, hi, hello everyone. My name is Felicia Cheek. I'm the Director of HCM Product Strategy at Oracle. I lead the payroll strategy team, and I've been advising large multinational companies on global payroll strategy for the last 15 years.
Yeah, welcome, Felicia. Great to see you again. And Rohit.
Hi, greetings of the day, everyone. This is Rohit Mathur. I head the strategic business unit of HR and payroll for Ramco Systems. Truly believe employee experience is one of the important facets of payroll, and it's definitely one of the guiding principles to our product strategy. Happy to be a part of this conversation and looking forward to some interesting discussions here.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thanks so much. It's good to see you both again. I always really appreciate our chats personally, as I love hearing your perspectives from the front lines of both HCM and payroll transformation to see what's going on. So before we get into the conversation, I want to just remind the audience, you're welcome to submit questions. Please submit them to our team through the chat. There's going to be a couple of points along the way where we're going to take those and try to answer as many as we can. And of course, any that we don't get to at the end or before the end, someone will follow up with you accordingly, and I'll share how to do that a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and get the conversation started, right? So look, now more than ever, the employee experience has really been thrust to the forefront of HR's priority list. And as firms continue to seek and attract and develop and retain their top talent, the priority particularly been challenging, with employees obviously commonly working from home or more dispersed than ever. And in many ways, the employee experience has become the core business case that a lot of firms are using for their transformation today. It's the end result that they're looking for, a positive employee experience. And digital technology advancements are obviously continuing to enable more personalization, a much more frictionless engagement, and certainly augment users to drive greater productivity and insights across their journeys, giving them the power to own their data and fundamentally own the progress along their career path. A key part of that experience is obviously payroll, and it sits very much at the core of that and goes a bit further by impacting both the employee financial wellness, but fundamentally, has a pivot point on the employer and employee trust, right? The confidence that each other have in the engagement. And payroll has to work very closely in harmony to help enable that positive employee experience and hopefully delight employees in the end. So look, I want to turn over to the panelists. I'm curious for your perspectives here, and really would love to hear your point of view on what you feel about employee delight and how your organizations are enabling it. Felicia, maybe we could go to you first, and you could give us your perspective on that, and then Rohit. Oh, I think we got Felicia muted.
Sorry.
One of us, right?
Right. As I mentioned, I agree. The employee experience is a top priority in every aspect of the business. What's really exciting is when we talk about the HCM payroll connection, we are now looking beyond just the integration of data and focusing on the experience, and that's the end-to-end experience. So we're looking at the HR administrator, we're looking at the payroll analyst, and most importantly, we're focusing on the employee. So our focus is creating a seamless interaction with high quality pertinent data. And for the employee, it's meeting them where they are at their time of need in various aspects of their personal and professional self.
Yeah, absolutely. Rohit, what do you think?
Well, Pete, I think quite concur with what Felicia just mentioned around the integration aspect with the HRMS. But from a payroll perspective, I think the first and the foremost important aspect of employee experience is paying them timely, accurately, and in a compliant manner. I think the trust starts here. You mentioned about the trust factor, Pete. I think the trust starts when the payroll is accurate and on time and the employees get paid correctly. As a payroll vendor, how you ensure the accurate and compliant payroll is the starting point, and hence automation here plays a paramount role. It's extremely important to minimize the manual intervention, ensure you have a proactive compliance using multi-channels. I mean, it's just not restricted to one channel. How you ensure that you are picking up the statutory changes across the globe through multi-modes and making sure that they're automated, I think is definitely one important factor. Then comes the autonomy. And I think the more power or the more control you give the employees on their data, on their operational task, I think it just goes to enhance the employee experience. And tools like chatbots, which are not only transactional in nature, they don't even just give you the transactional information, but they're much more intelligent today, giving you insight and analysis, and also recommendation at times regarding the information that's been sought. Lastly, Pete, I believe with the precarious times that we are in, I think financial wellness also makes an important aspect of employee experience. And solutions that are linked to financial wellness, solutions that are linked to the ease of using their pay, using pay wallets or on-demand pay, I think would only elevate the employee experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just to recap what I think we all sort of said there is, reliable outcomes in payroll absolutely must have, right? Accurate, timely, compliant. And yeah, absolutely. We're seeing much more of the augmentation and automation of processes that are freeing up both practitioner and employee to really focus on their day-to-day, but also give them the power and the transparency to control their data and their paths. That's great. So let's maybe just jump into the subtopic a little bit here today. Unleashing the power of Oracle HCM and Ramco Global Payroll on Oracle Cloud. Congrats on the partnership to both of you. I'd love to hear more about that partnership and how that's enabling the key aspects of the employee experience for your joint customers. Rohit, you want to maybe go first this time?
Absolutely. I think, Pete, it's a very, very exciting journey, a very exciting partnership, and I guess a great marriage, so to say, which is complementing to best of the breed solution. As you know, Oracle is extremely rich in the strategic part of the HR, which includes your recruitment, talent management, learning, so on and so forth. Ramco, on the other side, complements and completes the operational part with the global payroll solution, the leave management, and gives a holistic experience as far as an overall HRMS application is concerned. What we've also done in this partnership, Pete, is a very tight integration, which is not only limited to the data exchange, but also giving a superlative experience in terms of what we are calling as embedded experience, which means that the payroll application is rendered very, very seamlessly within the Oracle scheme of things. And the user community doesn't feel that they are interacting with two different systems, and there is no choppiness while you're traversing from one application to the other. So in a nutshell, if I can say with one single click, the Oracle HCM becomes statutorily compliant with, let's say, 50 plus countries on payroll, courtesy Ramco, which is running in the background, and definitely gives the desired scalability across geo to the Oracle HCM platform. And I guess another important point to mention out here is the need of extra training or alignment with the user community, which simply goes away because they don't need to learn two different systems. They don't need to learn traversing across the two applications. So I guess the embedded experience that we are talking about is something which is very unique, and extremely happy and excited to be a part of this engagement. And I think the proof of the pudding is the customers or the prospects are endorsing this relationship, and we have some quick wins which are already behind us.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Congrats. Felicia, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I agree with what he just said. From an Oracle perspective, this is our first partnership of this type where we are hosting Ramco in our Oracle Cloud environment, which really makes it secure, high performing, and part of the fastest moving cloud infrastructure. So that in itself is super exciting. The other thing is it expands our reach in the APAC and the EMEA region, allowing us to offer our customers more choices. business. And as we think about our global payroll vision, it's all about scalability, productivity, and enablement. And really, what we've done with Ramco has really positioned us nicely with the seamless integration. And, as Rahid said, there's lots of excitement here at Oracle around this relationship, and we're already closing business. So, I mean, why wouldn't we be excited?
Well, congrats to you both. That's really, really exciting stuff. Great to see these two powerful solutions coming together, and something that we definitely are seeing more and more in the market. Bringing HCM tightly with payroll is absolutely critical. And you guys make a great point, and something I want to highlight is that one of the key observations from our recent payroll research was just how impactful the lack of a seamless integration can be, both in the platform and to and from the platform. And we obviously normally would see a negative impact to the user experience if not, if that wasn't adequate and it wasn't seamless. To your point, the employee shouldn't know that there's multiple systems at play, regardless of how the operating model has been put together. And often it really does connect the landscape together and enable that free flow of data for the seamless experience that you guys discuss. And I think it's absolutely critical, if not vital, to payroll, particularly global payroll. As you know, transformation, you commonly require capabilities to cover regions, and that means multiple solutions that have to be tightly integrated. So congrats to you both. I'm excited to see what you guys produce from that. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what's kind of changed over the last 12 months from the employee perspective. And again, just a reminder, continue to put in your questions. We're going to get to those as we get to the end here. But the last year has been a real wake-up call for many, and a lot of firms realize that payroll is far more essential, complex, and really vulnerable, and desperately needing of modernization to really enable that the critical process to better support the strategic direction of their business. Many firms with outdated operating models found themselves in a particularly difficult situation when COVID happened and the lockdown occurred. Business continuity plans were absolutely put to the test. Money movement became difficult for getting funds to employees that were now dispersed and no longer co-located. And those that had modern solutions and modern service partners or managed service partners generally fared better in the ability to tap into their data on demand, have guidance and expertise to support them in reaching government support, but really getting at that data and making good decisions off of it, which is we found bubbled up quite a bit when we were talking to buyers around the things that they recognize they need moving forward. And of course, as you mentioned, scalable, right? The ability to scale that solution upward to handle the growth of the organization and fundamentally pivot as things change. So, just to kind of build onto those shifts that I've seen, what are you guys seeing? Felicia, maybe you could go first this time. What are you seeing in terms of the kind of business shifts that are impacting the HCM and payroll customers that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. And business continuity, just to talk about that a little bit. I mean, over the last year, we've really seen that that really come to fruition, so to speak, because everyone's had a business continuity plan in place, but I don't think very many thought to make sure that that plan was sustainable. So lots of focus there. And one of the things that I always like to say from a payroll perspective, when we look at the priority of payroll within the organization, payroll definitely has proved to be very valuable to the organization as far as equipment, as far as priority and the access that the payroll organization has to VPN and everything that they need to be connected to the employee population. The other thing that the last 12 months or so has really taught us is compliance. It's always been a concern, a top priority. This is payroll. And obviously, when we talk about payroll, compliance is a big part of that. But what we've seen over the last year is, multiple changes in almost every single country across the globe. So the ability to be able to manage that and to be agile and flexible has been really, really important. And a lot of organizations, particularly in a cloud environment, were really able to shine because they could pivot very, very quickly. So again, I think that's one of the things that has really fared well. And we talk about self-service, and the adaptation of self-service within any organization has not been as strong as we would like to say for as long as we've been talking about it. But the ability to use self-service and have your employees connected, and not just from a desktop, but the ability to have mobile access anywhere, anytime access, has proved very, very critical. The last thing that I would say, well, actually, two things I want to say in the area of the payment methods. This is something, particularly in the United States, that we've been really, really slow to adapt electronic payments. I mean, we've been doing really well over the last few years, but there's still quite a few stragglers. And electronic payments has proved to be very worthy. And electronic payments in the form of, bank accounts, pay cards, but just being able to get the funds to your employees as quickly as possible is really, really important. And finally, what I'll say when we talk about the processes and, how we are building our policies, our procedures, really being able to simplify, streamline, and standardize is important. Those organizations that had very clean, clear-cut, simple processes were able to function very well. Those that were a little bit more complex, a lot of manual intervention, struggled a little bit over the last 12 months. That's pretty much how I'll leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think any of us thought these continuity plans would nearly take on what they had to take on. So yeah, Rohit, what would you add to that?
I completely agree with all the points that Felicia mentioned, and in fact, the BCP models were put to real test in these situations, which were sort of always there on the paper, but I think the real proof of the pudding came in during these times. For us, I think uninterrupted payments was a first milestone, because cloud there came to our rescue. It sort of is now becoming a de facto standard, but since we were hosted on the cloud and earlier investment on the cloud did pay off, the movement to work from home became much more easy, much more seamless. The switchover was without any interruption, because people could just log in from their respective laptops and devices from their home and still be able to carry out their piece of work. So I guess investment on cloud was definitely one of the important things out there. The second part was early adoption of automation. And I think that was, again, crucial to run the business as usual, despite all the interruptions that we faced. And we also early on invested in a lot of AI-led features. And one of the important facets was the self-initiating pay runs, because the work from office was disrupted. People were not able to report in to their workplaces. Based on the past patterns, based on the past triggers, the payroll could initiate itself automatically and ask the payroll administrator whether it was okay to initiate the payroll run. And not only that, but also automated triggers in terms of missing inputs and collecting the requisite information from the employees directly also came in handy to smoothen the process. Felicia talked about a very important point around compliance. And I think the automation in compliance also became extremely critical because the statutory changes were coming by the day, by the week, and it was sort of becoming difficult for people to keep a track of all these changes. And there, again, the automation came to our rescue. We have automated feeds that are coming in from the Big Four advisory firm, which directly park themselves in our product queue. So that we get early signs of what coming up as a change. Not only that, we had our AI-based web scraping tools, which were again crawling across the web to search for information around statutory changes. And based on those changes, they were also sort of putting in the requisite triggers in our product queue. The next important point to us was how we give the visibility of the entire process to, let's say, a payroll administrator. And there, again, investment in intelligent chatbot came to help. We have something called as a Spock bot. So while your payroll process is going on, the payroll administrator can simply ask the chatbot as to what is the status, how many errors are there, or what are the missing information, what needs to be done to further process the payroll. So I think all of that information was completely handy. in terms of the excess around the process. The fourth important point was how we were able to give the access to information and more autonomy, as I said, over the data and personal task to the employees directly. Because again, the help desks sort of were getting interrupted. They were not reporting into work, and people were really scrambling for information. And there again, what we introduced as an important feature is a self-explaining payslip. Which means when I'm sort of having questions around my payslip, the chatbot analyzes the entire information and gives me enough information to compare payslips across the time periods. And it's not only static information that the chatbot is crawling on. It's also talking to what we are calling as anomaly and reasoning engine, which is again based on the AI. So while anomaly engine would sort of point out the differences between two time periods, the reasoning engine would try and give information around the logic of that particular change. And it's again talking to the statutory, the payroll logic, so on and so forth. So for example, if I spot on that my CPF calculated for this month looks to be different than the last month, then the chatbot would just analyze the data and say, hey, you've gone into a different age bracket, and hence your CPF deduction looks to be very different. So I guess access to information, visibility, automation, and I guess investment on cloud was something that helped people out in last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think just to paraphrase what we're all saying here is that, payroll is vital. I think we agree, everyone agrees, and continuity is absolutely not negotiable. And really the complexity, particularly around compliance, is only going to intensify. We continue to see that, from the vendors we speak to, from the buyers we speak to. It's all very, very angst driven. And absolutely the modern infrastructure and tech, digital tech that's coming online is really, really helping firms position themselves to be more agile in handling these things and preparing the operating model for the future. So thank you both for that. So, maybe just kind of coming back, I know you're both obviously on the front lines with firms that are adopting technology and adopting all these things we're talking about to really bring their organizations forward. So maybe Felicia, we could start with you. What are you seeing in how firms are approaching this, and how are they addressing those changing dynamics? And then maybe Rohit, you can join into that as well.
Yeah, so we've actually seen companies getting even more excited and putting more emphasis on moving to the cloud because they can clearly see the benefits and how they've been able to adjust during COVID, really expediting the movement to the cloud. They're looking for a consistent employee experience regardless of the geographical location, which is a big concern or a big challenge in a global payroll environment. And when we talk about Oracle Cloud HCM, we continue to be a leader in the market. We just launched our Oracle Journeys product a few days ago, creating a lot of new excitement around the employee experience. And by partnering with Ramco, this really feeds right into that with the seamless integration, which extends our capabilities that are included in the HCM and payroll. Real-time functionality is something that I just want to talk a little bit about. It's pretty common when we think about these interfaces today, but one of the things that we've done, and you will hear, is we realize that in payroll, every transaction doesn't necessarily need to be real time, but there are key transactions that we really want to look at for real time, those that have an impact on productivity, efficiency, or cost. And so one of the things that we've done is if you hire an employee, a new hire employee in the system, that information is real time, goes straight to the payroll system. So alleviating the need to do all cycle payments. The other thing that we see that has a big impact on payroll is terminations. So when an employee terminates on the HCM system, rather than having any lag in time, which as we know, often leads to overpayments, that transaction goes to the payroll system immediately. So really focusing on those type things and making them better. And one of the major things that we see is that most organizations have recognized that HR transformation, regardless of where payroll is located in your organization, HR transformation is not complete without payroll. It has to be a part of your global strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Rohit, what would you add to that? Anything?
Absolutely. I think Felicia talked about the payroll transformation, and I truly believe the payroll transformation, what it really means is having a greater control on your global payroll process end to end, not limiting to some MIS or dashboards alone, but the ability to drill down to last transaction and make corrections, edit right then and there itself, and quickly be able to rerun and see the outputs based on the revised inputs that you've given. And there comes the importance of a very deep technology intervention, which is not only consolidation across multiple geographies, but having entire payroll chain in your control all the way up to the net calculations, which I guess is only possible when you've invested yourself in a robust platform rather than an aggregation model, which is sort of aggregating data from multiple in-country providers. And hence, I think the control by having a single consolidated platform is becoming extremely important, especially in a global environment. And when you see the local compliance aspects becoming more and more prominent post-COVID, it becomes very, very difficult. The entire compliance automation becomes very difficult if you have to have multiple systems to make the amendment or changes in and multiple partners to manage. So to me, I think important pillar of the payroll transformation is a decision or a cognizance to move towards a consolidated or a single software platform for your global statutory and compliances needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love when you guys said there that, we all agree payroll is a very critical part of the employee experience, and it has to be part of or included in the HR transformation for that transformation to be complete, especially when we're talking about the employee experience, which obviously has to be very consistent, seamless, and obviously should be transparent to whether or not what systems are at play for the employee, as we've mentioned. And I love the points about the real-time pay impacting insights and transactions. That is, I think that's huge now, something that practitioners have at their disposal that is absolutely critical. And then, of course, Rohit, as you mentioned, just the idea or the goal of getting to a single centralized payroll solution is obviously ideal for that experience as well. So look, I want to pause here because I know we've been getting some questions in. I think we already have a few queued up and ready to go. So maybe we'll take a few of those and then jump to our next segment, if that's okay. So let's see what we have for us. Okay, so the first question comes in from Linson Joseph. So he says, user-friendly employee self-service portals, e.g. two-step verification or self-resets versus complex and more secure portal, e.g. an admin-controlled password reset. How's the employee preference generally trending in that regard? I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
I will just say that I will just say that I think that you should be able to do both. We should be able to have a secure employee portal that is user friendly, that's intuitive, and the employee doesn't struggle to move around. So I don't know why we can't do both. I mean, that would be the goal.
Yeah, understood.
And I guess I would also want to concur on that front, Pete, with Felicia. I think we probably need to give the flexibility to use both the options. I think there are organizations who are comfortable with a two-step verification process, and some insist on a self-resets. But I think the power of the system is to facilitate both, and based on the organizational preference, it should be able to render itself.
Yeah, understood. Okay, great. I think we have a couple more maybe. Yeah, here we go from William Champion. Thank you for your question. Does Ramco process 50 countries, all 50 countries in the cloud or in country? That's probably for you, Rohit, I think.
Well, I think, thanks for that question, William. Ramco, as I said, is a single software platform which has 50 plus countries on single code base, which means you can host it on the cloud, as well as have a shared services center where you would want to host it on premise. The beauty of the solution, in-country providers. So if your question was related to, do we have in-country providers to do the payroll processing? process? The answer is no, because we do it centrally on one single code base. And I think that's where the entire scalability aspect or having greater control over your global payroll operations comes from.
Yeah, great. All right, I think we have one more, and then we'll transition over to our next phase here. So again, from Linson, thank you for coming in with multiple questions. Any offering to pay employees via pay card, e-vouchers, while new modified banking details are held for maybe a pre-note process? Who wants to take that one?
Let me take a shot at that. And I think that's a very, very relevant question in today's times. And Pete, if you really see, the millennials are all up for wallets, while I'm trying to be one. But yes, I think they're many more cash transactions, and I think it's the payment wallet which does the trick for them. So I think we would see a lot of movement and shift towards company-branded pay wallets, because it's not only giving the ease of transferring the salary or the bonus or even the rewards and recognition program, but also helping the organization to assist the employees in their financial planning and well-being. So definitely a major shift towards payment through the wallets.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to add to that really quick. And I think that when we talk about employee payments, this is probably, when we think about payroll, one of the most exciting things that we're doing. And we're going to see lots of change in this area in the future. Employee financial well-being, which, as Rohit said, some of the payment methods that the employee choose will enable some of the additional benefits or employee benefits from a financial well-being perspective. So I think it's a great question. I agree 100% with what Rohit said. And I would say to look out for lots of new things in the method or the employee payment methods in payroll.
Yeah, completely agree. We're seeing an absolute just huge demand for that, particularly in North America, and that's getting bigger and bigger elsewhere. So yeah, I find myself, even we're all using more digital payment solutions on our phones and such, and it's almost becoming where it's the norm in a lot of ways, wherever you shop. So absolutely, that's great stuff. So let's go ahead. I think we're going to wrap our questions there. We'll have another opportunity to continue to send them in. We'll go over a few more hopefully there at the end. But let's go ahead and transition over to our next topic. So look, we've talked a little bit about integration, or a lot about integration, I should say, here up front. And we've just published, NelsonHall has our annual payroll report, and one of the key findings again is just fundamentally that not all solutions are integrated equally, right? Not all integration is really equal. And in fact, it was surprising to me that 40% of the buyers that we talked to told us that they didn't really have an adequate, or they weren't satisfied with their level of integration with their payroll solution and third-party platforms. And in some cases, that even included their HCM, right? Not having that connected to their HCM, which may or may not have been planned depending upon where they were on their journey, but certainly not ideal in any way. And often, what we found was those that had a degraded, had a lack of integration or a poor quality, had a poor satisfaction overall for other areas of their solution, particularly reporting and sometimes even the user experience, depending upon what they were working with. So Rohit, I'd love to start with you. What are your thoughts on why this is so impactful to the employee experience, and what do you mean when you guys say embedded integration between yourselves and Oracle?
So Pete, as you rightly said, I think the entire landscape could be multiple solutions coming together. However, from an employee perspective, they are looking at a very, very seamless experience. Irrespective of what systems you use in the background, they don't want the entire experience to be choppy when you are switching over from one system to the other. And hence, what we are calling as the embedded approach is that you don't leave one system while you are fetching information or data from a third party or a second system. And trying to ingrain the user experience within one UI, thereby eliminating all the training needs, all the awareness around multiple softwares there. Maybe let me put up a small video and let that do a little bit of talking there, Pete, and just to illustrate my point.
Absolutely.
Can you do the video? So Pete, if you see, this is a landing page of self-service for Oracle, where you have all your menu options around the self-service. If you go to the Pay tab and get into the Pay option, you get to a screen where you can download your pay slips. So while you are still in the Oracle scheme of things, you're actually going on to Ramco to fetch the processed payroll and pulling up the pay slips from Ramco. However, there is no shift in the UI that takes place, and the user still stays in the Oracle scheme of things. So I think this is what we mean by an embedded experience. Everything is happening in the background. All the data exchange, all the data pull up is happening in the background, and all that the user sees is one Oracle HCM. And with this single click, you get the Oracle HCM to be payroll compliant for 50 plus countries that we mentioned, without even knowing what system is running in the background for enabling these multiple compliances.
Yeah, absolutely. Felicia, anything to add to that?
No, I agree with that, and I think so this is the first time that we show the screen during this conversation, but the main thing is it is a seamless experience. And so when we talk about global payroll, we talk about the challenges, we talk about the frustration, and I guess I'll say that one of the things that everyone has to learn when we talk about global payroll is there are multiple systems, and what we've done here is we've put all of that in the back. And we've minimized the systems. Obviously, we have all the benefits of the different systems and the compliance and all of those things. But from a user perspective, it's one system. Nothing changes. You access your payroll data the same way that you access your HR and other data. It's a great thing. And we intend to continue to leverage innovation like this to streamline the process and increase productivity across all back office functions. So we said before, this is like one of the reasons that we are super, super excited about what we're doing here.
Yeah, very cool stuff. It's great. Yeah, and I agree. We've mentioned this a few times, but I agree. Your employees shouldn't know how the cake is baked, so to speak, behind the scenes. They really just need a single experience and the results that they're obviously expecting. Timely, accurate payroll. So absolutely, good stuff. So look, let's pivot a little bit again and talk about maybe some of the levers of technology that are really helping force this change or enable this change. In recent years, we've obviously seen a tremendous amount of innovation in HR and especially payroll. I think in the last year, the investments have just been massive in terms of firms buying into payroll products, but also firms investing in the innovation of those products. And it's all having a very strong, very heavy effect on payroll. It's moving the critical process forward. And I think over the long term, will have a very profound effect on how we engage with systems. I know you guys are very much at Ramco focused on zero UI. And I think that's where things are going, where it is very effortless for people to do what they need to do and get on with their jobs and day-to-day productivity. And really empowering the practitioners and employees with the type of data and tools they need to give them the chance to be successful and really move their experience forward, move that employee experience forward. So maybe Rohit, we could start with you. You could maybe talk about some of the enablers, the technology enablers that are modernizing, advancing the experience forward, and how those are coming into play.
Yeah. So I guess, Pete, there's a need for permanent change here. I think whatever has happened in the last 12 months has necessitated a need for a permanent change. And I guess the technology levers have become extremely important to serve employees who are working from anywhere, right? There are no more offices that people are coming to. They can be located anywhere. And hence, the need to establish what I call as a digital relationship in today's time is extremely important. So how you use these technology levers to sort of engage your employees and give them a superlative experience, I think it's definitely the need of the hour. And both the end user as well as the administrators who are actually processing the payroll. We did talk about the self-assisted intelligent tools like chatbots, which are not only giving you transactional information, but are also giving you meaningful insights on the data and sort of coming out with recommendations using the AI. And we did talk about the anomaly and the reasoning engine, which helps power all of that. Also, I think the fact that we need to have more personalized and intimate relationship with the employees now. And what that essentially means is how you sort of embed a personalization engine in your software, which means you save a whole lot of data entry, default a lot of data, and the users should feel that the screen is personalized for him or her, or the data that he uses frequently is already there in the system. So what we really talk about inside Ramco is that the data needs to be only entered if the sun is rising from the west, which means if the system cannot predict the data, if system cannot default the data, then it should not be entered inside the system at all. So that's what we really are talking about as far as the personalization engine is concerned, Pete. And I think that's going to be one of the important levers as we move along. We did talk about financial wellness, and sort of I won't really go again on how pay wallets are sort of coming up and becoming a trend, which certainly is here to stay. Apart from that, I think an important element would be the on-demand pay, because I think that also goes to elevate the employee experience. Gone are the days when people would want to wait for a fortnight or a monthly run to happen. They want their payment instantly. So this age is instant gratification. So if they've earned something, they want it right then and there itself. So I think we will see more of on-demand payroll across the globe picking up, while it's certainly getting more and more prominent in the US and advanced geographies. But I think we would see this trend catching up across the globe, and definitely a whole lot of investments and features that people would develop around pay wallet, not only to remit the salary and the bonuses, but also as an engagement tool to become a financial advisor to the employees and engage on various levels rather than just paying their salaries through the wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. Felicia, anything to add to that?
Just not a whole lot, but I agree 100% with what we just said, and it's really, I like to say, humanizing the experience and going beyond. One of the things that I would say that that has come out of the last year is we've humanized our work environment. It's with Zoom, you see your colleagues from different perspectives. You see you see their animals, and basically we're doing some of those things with our technology. I like to think we're humanizing the integration. It's more than just transferring data. It's again making the experience better for everybody involved. We've talked a lot about seamless data entry. I don't think we can talk enough about that because it's super exciting. But at the end of the day, we're alleviating the complexity of multiple local systems while still ensuring compliance on the local level. So super exciting times, I believe.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. As a past practitioner myself, it is very refreshing to see the types of things that are coming into the space and really giving a lot of relief, if you will, to practitioners, but also employees, and really create empowerment. So we've had some great conversation here. We still do have one more topic to go over, and we do want to take some questions, but I thought I would just kind of paraphrase the day and kind of get us on to the next piece. I think what we're hearing is that fundamentally the volatility of things like COVID are going to continue. The expectation is that there's going to be another event. I'm sure that is not going to be something we plan for, and certainly future-proofing HR operating models, particularly payroll included, and really bringing the user experience forward through digital technology and digital capabilities is going to be paramount in maintaining that agility and resiliency in sort of navigating and riding the wave of the next wave of volatility. I think that solution that you do put forth has to be a very tightly integrated offering, right? It has to be seamless to the employee, as we've discussed. Must be very modern, very real time, and very on demand, just like their personal lives, and really personalized to help them achieve the journeys that they're on and the goals that they have. And I love what you said, Felicia, about humanizing the experience. I think that is very, very important. It is technology, but it also is humans using that technology to support their human growth, if you will, human capital, development. So very, very key stuff. And I think that one of the things I love about all of this is that the complexity of payroll is not going away. It's absolutely increasing. We see that year in and year out when we talk to buyers, that it's just getting more and more intense. And I think all of those key things that we talked about today, the automation, the data, artificial intelligence, all of the key tools that are coming into play are really giving the employee power to control their data and really own their personal information and own their careers, but also on the back end, really giving the practitioners the opportunity to pivot away from all that ticking and tying and sort of monotonous work that they've done in the past in payroll to compensate for the lack of technology and innovation, and really position them to be able to be more supportive in a strategic manner to advise the business. And I think that's where payroll ultimately has to get to, and it is going to be a long process, but through these tools, I think it's going to be an exciting journey. So let's pivot to one more topic, and then we'll go ahead and answer as many questions as we can here to wrap up. I think we're doing well on time. One of the things that we talk about a lot is the word transformation gets thrown around, and it is difficult, right? Everyone is on a very different journey. The path to that transformation, may or may not actually have an end game. It may continue for a long time as firms really shape and format the experience around their individual needs and requirements as they're growing. But I thought we could each sort of talk about, I know you guys are on the front lines, and maybe we could talk about some of the things that we see and how firms navigate those to be successful. And I can just get us started. One of the things that we saw, which comes through regularly, but this year it really bubbled up a bit in terms of payroll transformation, is just the lack of a clear plan that firms often lack or don't have when going into a transformation strategy. Many times they'll come to the table with no real global payroll strategy, not a really clear direction for where they want to go, but also not really a clear plan for how they're going to roll that program out and support the change impacts that come with that, which are very, very critical to actually achieving the transformation, right? Taking the optimized model, taking the modern technology, and really pivoting towards that and adapting to its capabilities. So I think what that's doing is it creates a situation for both client and the buyer, in that they're both kind of in a bad position from the start, where there isn't a plan, and now payroll firms now are becoming kind of consultative in that way and getting pulled harder on that. So I think that's one area that I think a lot of firms set off without a real clear plan, and that does impede the ability to get this done and do it in a timely and sort of clean fashion. But maybe Felicia, you could get us started. What do you see from your perspective, just out there working with customers? And then Rohit, maybe you could join us as well on that.
Yeah, and I agree with what you say. I always think it's interesting, and you can tell where they are with their global strategy when we see a customer and they mention that they just want to talk about these countries. They've got 50 other countries, but we just want to focus on these two. Surely an indicator a lot of times of a lack of a global strategy. But one of the things that I will say is, when we talk about that global strategy, is really recognizing that there are multiple systems in a global payroll environment, and you need a clear strategy to optimize the systems. There's not really a way around it, but your strategy will determine how you operate and just how you're able to really minimize the impact of those systems. I will say the goal that we have with Oracle Payroll Connect is to not only integrate data, but to bring consistency to your processes and experiences across the globe. And this should be a huge part of your HCM globalization strategy: consistency across the globe. And that's pretty much, I'll try to keep it short here because I want to make sure we have time to take some questions. So Rohit, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Felicia.
Absolutely, Felicia. I think we've seen similar stuff. I think to me, it looks like more often than not, people would have a very clear strategy till about vendor selection. They know what to select and how to select. They have a defined RFP process. However, I think vendor selection to me is the first step for your transformation journey. Most importantly, do we have a transformation structure in place? How are we managing the adoption of technology? More often than not, people are either using a legacy system or maybe they're still on paper. So how exactly are we driving the adoption of technology there, and how exactly the change management aspect is being taken care? I think those are some of the areas that tend to get ignored once the vendor selection is almost done. Also, to the point that Felicia mentioned around, people having multiple countries and still saying, I want to go with two. We've also seen situations where people would say, I would want to go with all the countries together. However, I think what you really see as a challenge is when you're actually executing and implementing them. More often than not, it's taken as a centralized decision. However, the alignment and buy-in from the respective countries or the regions is not done very well. And what you end up doing is having a large transformation program that struggles because the independent countries are trying to push back, and they still are not able to see a holistic picture of what this transformation would bring to the table. So I guess my sense would be to sort of socialize the entire program much before you actually roll it out. And focus a lot on adoption of technology, which being one of the important factors in driving your transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you both very much for that. That's great stuff. I feel like I could continue to, I wish we could talk longer. This is great. Okay. So look, let's, that kind of concludes the questions and sort of topics that we wanted to run through today and talk with you. So now I want to open it up to our audience. And I think we've already have a number of questions sort of queued up. So maybe we can get these started. So the first one comes from Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. She says, will Ramco payroll integration with Oracle HCM be near real time to include in new employees and also consider exits?
I'll take that one. And
okay.
Yes, absolutely. So it will include new employees for real time. Termination, leavers, exits will also be a part of that. And we will continue to evaluate transactions that would benefit from real-time capability.
Yeah. Sounds like you're focused on the payroll impacting stuff first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Another question? All right, Ninad, thank you. Is there any documentation released at this point which explains the underlying architecture and what, as a partner, we should be looking into?
Well, Vinod, let me take that question. I think we definitely have a whole lot of engineering efforts which have gone through. And now I think we are in the process of sort of industrializing it and bringing it to the market. So yes, there will be a lot of documentation that would be available on the underlying architecture and how to go about configuring the same inside both the systems. So yes, the documentation would be available in the due course. We are just out of our engineering phase, and now we should be in the industrialization phase.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rohit. Okay, what else? More questions? Let's see. I think we got another one coming up. And just to, while that's happening, oh, here we go, we got it. Linson says, next question, future of AI being used for payroll inquiries and help desk. Any developments being done at Ramco? And also, how about the automation around remote onboarding?
Well, again, Linson, thanks for that question. And if you recall, I did mention about how we are effectively using intelligent chatbots for all the payroll inquiries. And again, it's not limited to only inquiries. It's also getting into more deep insights using the AI-based anomaly and reasoning engine to give you comparisons, to give you further insights on how your pay is calculated. So it just won't give you a static information around the pay slip. It will also give you explanation on the logic and the calculation process to arrive at your final payout. How is your OT calculated? What rates have been applied? How many OT hours have you considered? What is my CPF calculation? How is it derived? So all of those information would also be something that the chatbot would be able to offer. So that's the automation that one can look at as far as the help desk is concerned, and largely driven through the chatbots. We are very soon also venturing into the voice-based inquiry system, but right now it's the chatbot which gives you all the power that's required for automating your help desk.
Yeah, excellent. So look, I know we are getting to the end, but last call. Any other questions before we conclude? Going once, going twice. Okay, look, if you missed any questions, or excuse me, you didn't think of it now, you missed the opportunity to ask. No worries. Email that to contact @Ramco, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible with a follow-up to that, as soon as they can. So look, thank you so very much to our panelists. It's always great to see you both, and I enjoy having our conversations. I always love talking to you guys offline as well. And thank you so much for everyone's engagement today, for your questions, and for joining into the conversation. A recording will be available after the event for replay. I believe it'll be available at the exact same link that you used to join. And if any questions weren't answered, like I said, submit those to contact@ramco.com through email, and someone will provide a follow-up to that as soon as possible. So thank you again to everyone who joined, and we really appreciate it. Good to see you guys again, and have a great day.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.